right, let's talk about this idea of more service. Earl Nightingale pointed something out, and he said, you can drive through any town in the United States, and you could tell by just looking at a person's house and the property that they have, who is giving more service and value in life and who isn't. And I think that that's a very accurate idea. The only reason that a person makes money is from service of some kind. But the problem is that most people never understand that formula, right? Last night we pointed out the law of compensation, which is the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. That is the exact proportion of a person's compensation, and it always will be. So when we think about that, if we kind of like reverse architect the idea and go back at what are we actually looking at, we're looking at two very important things in the very beginning of a person's decision to give more service. And that is, one, the option that it can be done to begin with, and number two, the decision to actually do it. In other words, something has to wake up inside of a person to say, I'm going to live more than just a mediocre life, right? I'm going to develop myself to the point where I actually have the ability to give more service. Now, they may not use those words. They probably won't use those words, but they're using the idea behind it to understand there has to be more of me in order to be able to trade to make more money. But what was fascinating about what Earl was saying was the amount of people that don't. I think he said out of 100 people that start off at age 25, there's only one that becomes rich by 65 out of 100 people. And that's pretty sad when we live in the wealthiest country in the world, basically, with the most opportunity. Only one out of 65, only one out of 100, right? Now, yeah, it's dated, but it's still going to be the same today as it was then. This has a unique idea for the person that is involved in sales within an organization. And here's what the idea is. If you look at these people that don't make the grade in their life, the largest part of them is the part that is ignorant to the idea that they have the ability to do it to begin with. Even if it's been spoken around them, they still don't know it that they know it. They believe, you can just tell, right? Because a person's life is the equivalent to whatever it is that they believe, period. That's what it is. So if you're looking at that and you're thinking to yourself, well, what would have been the first thing that would have to happen in order for these people to make a different decision? Is that somebody or some group of people would have had to put quite a bit of effort into getting that message into their mind to begin with. Because you'd have to get it into their mind. That message would have to grow. They'd have to consider it. They'd have to think about it for, quite a period of time. And then they'd have to make a decision that they're going to do something different with their life instead of just buying into the average story that most people actually buy into. So when a person decides that they're actually going to be a person that gives more service out there, what are they actually doing? They're doing in fact, the same thing that these people missed. You are a person that has a message, right? You have a product or a service. And what moves the product or the service is that message. We call that message sales. How do you get the idea into the mind of another person? But a lot of people don't view sales as a service, but it's probably one of the greatest services, maybe the greatest service, because it allows a person to come up to the line where they can make a decision to make a change. If you study Napoleon Hill's book, he talks about how most people can't make a decision, right? They're just bogged down with, if I do, if I don't, what if this happens, what if something goes wrong? They just absolutely can't make a decision. And he said, out of studying 500 people, one of the unique qualities that he found of those 500 was that they had the ability to make a decision quickly and change it slowly if they change it at all. And we also talked about persistence, which falls in there too. But this decision thing should not go unnoticed, because if you ask yourself, who is your ideal client and how do they think? What is it that they're thinking about? How do they make decisions? That's a really good question to ask. I think a lot of people would love it. A lot of salespeople would love it if people would just knock at their door and throw them money all day long for what it is that they want, right? I mean, that would be the greatest thing in the world. We'd never get Raheem out of the living room if that's the way that it worked, right? But it isn't the way that it works. It's somebody's going after somebody in a way to talk to them about an option that they then have to make a decision about. And because most of them don't know how to make a decision, the responsibility of communicating that decision falls square in the lap of the salesperson. But you know what happens with most salespeople? Because it's the same thing. You've got the 1% of salespeople that are just rock stars. They make it happen all the time. We talked about it with the book from Elmer G. Letterman, How Showmanship Sells. We talked about it with various different people that have just been, Ben Feldman, right, of Ohio. The greatest insurance salesman ever, sold more insurance than most companies did, just one person. And he didn't travel further than 50 or 60 miles from around his house, right? East Liverpool, Ohio. You can look him up on Wikipedia and read his story. I go through it in the Matrix program with people because it's extraordinary what that guy did. But the average salesperson has trouble making their mark every month, right? They're always running up against the end of the month. Am I going to make it? I got a few more sales. Am I going to actually get there? Many times their job is in jeopardy. Is the boss going to keep them or fire them? And that's like an awful way to have to live. But it's the same problem. They don't know how to make a decision, right? So indecisiveness creates chaos. It creates anxiety. Well, what's causing that? Indecision. A person that can't make a decision and then stay on the track with the decision that they actually make. It's a horrific thing because one skill set could change that, and that's the ability to make a decision. But let's talk about salespeople for a moment. One of the things that you should focus on is really helping other people make a decision. Getting really good at helping people make a decision, because 9 out of 10 times the client is selling the salesperson, right? When you hear an objection, I can't buy, I won't do it this time, I'll do it next time. We're not spending money till next month. Let me think about it. Let me call you back Tuesday, and they don't call. I have to have a conversation with somebody else. Whatever the excuse is, when you get off the phone with that person and you have gone with their excuse, you didn't sell them. They sold you. They sold you. It is evidence that you don't know how to help them make a decision. And that's probably because, and I say this with respect to everybody, if you're running into that problem, it's probably because you don't know how to make decisions in other areas of your life either. You're never firmly on one side of the line or the other. It's always maybe wishy-washy. If something changes, maybe the moon cycles, something, right? Like, we'll see what happens. Let me check my horoscope. That type of thing. That's how most people live their life, because they're scared to death to make a decision to be on one side of an idea or another. So the first thing that I would recommend is, if that exists anywhere in your life, it's something that you want to clean up. What's most important, okay? And of course, this is taught to top entrepreneurs all over the world. What's most important is that you make a decision. It's not important whether it's the right one or the wrong one. Because when you feel that you don't have enough information to make a decision, but there's no way for you to get any more information, then you stay stuck in that place. However, once you make a decision, you will quickly find out if it was the right one or if it was the wrong one. If it's the right one, you can learn from that. And if it's the wrong one, you can learn from that also, because then it teaches you what the right thing would be to actually do. So when you're thinking about how an entrepreneur lives their life, Proctor used to say, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. Most people don't want to live in that place because, oh my God, if I make the wrong decision. But entrepreneurs aren't concerned with that. And we should take a leaf out of that book that they're not. Now, to not be concerned about that would mean that they would know something that most people don't know. And that is the consequence of most decisions not being wrong is not a fatal thing. In fact, probably with all the things that would be fatal or you have, like a complete ending kind of consequence, we already know that. We're just talking about the average stuff that people are doing every single day. Are you going to buy or not buy? Are you getting on the boat or not getting on the boat, right? Are you going to move and sell the house or not sell the house? Like make a freaking decision and do something about it. There's a whole chapter devoted to this in Think and Grow Rich. You should study it, right? Along with the chapter on persistence. First is examine your life for places where you're being wishy-washy, where you're ambivalent, where you're not making decisions, and clean that up. Say, I'm no longer going to live in that space ever. I'm going to make a decision regardless. Once I've given it the amount of thought that I need, if I ask myself the four questions, is this something I want to be, do, or have, so on, right? I'm going to make a decision, period. That's it. And then I'm going to live with the outcome of that decision. And if it's the wrong decision, I'm going to learn from the wrong decision and I'm going to correct it. Now, that has nothing to do with you as far as who you are, your personality, your self-worth, nothing. In fact, it increases your stock because you can't move forward without decisions. Now, as a salesperson, you're going to start to learn how to help other people make decisions and make them faster, because it's not that the person doesn't want your product or service, it's that they're indecisive. Their life is a hodgepodge of indecision, so to speak. You're having a conversation with somebody and they're going, that's expensive. I don't know if we have the money or not. None of that ever matters. When they really want something, they always find the money. So when a person is communicating indecision to a salesperson, what is it saying? You have not conveyed the value enough as it pertains to that individual so that they can make a decision. Because if you did, they would be, I don't have the money, but I'm going to find it. Sign me up. That's the way that they would be thinking. And it doesn't matter if it's an individual or if it's B2B, right? Businesses do it all the time, all the time. It's a little more technical with businesses because you got to get to the right person and you got to make the right pitch. And you have to be thinking about more than just the individual that you're talking to, but businesses do it all the time. I mean, inside businesses, we know that usually the bigger the organization, the more bureaucracy, the more red tape that's going around. So a lot of times they're not doing things that would actually be for their good if they did. But a really good salesperson will figure that stuff out and show them how to get past that. And those are the ones that make the big wins. So when you're having a conversation with somebody, the old saying is the sale doesn't start until they say no. And the no isn't, no, I don't want to buy from you, right? I mean, if you're a salesperson, ask yourself, how often have you actually heard somebody say that to you? It's probably extremely rare because most people don't come out and say no. They make an excuse. So the idea would be, if the person is making an excuse, that's when you have to know more than they do about why your product or service is valuable to them and what the consequences are of them not buying. And in the moment of indecision, when things get really scary for them, if your product or service actually solves a problem long term, you're dealing with a short-term pain with the client. What could that possibly be? Well, it could be it's usually only a couple things, like a small handful. One would be they have to do something different right now to get the money. Maybe they have to take it out of savings, or maybe they have to take it out of a college account or a 401k or someplace that they're not used to actually using the money. But they have the money, they're just not used to using it. And that could also be credit, by the way. The other thing is that maybe they have somebody in their life that's pushing back against what it is that they're doing. You have to understand how to handle that also with that person. That could be involved in you having a conversation with their partner so that you can actually make the sale to the partner and not have them try to convey the sale, over the weekend while they're having margaritas someplace, and then they'll get back to you on Tuesday, because we know how that's going to go. It's not going to go, right? It just isn't going to work. Your job is, okay, let's get the partner on the phone. Let's have a call. I'll talk to your partner. I'll help you out with this, right? You want to buy, you want to get involved with this? I'll help you out. Let's get your partner on the phone. Now, if they do that, you know that they're serious. If they don't, you know that they're just making an excuse. But every which way they go with any kind of an objection, your solution should be to move them closer to the decision. In fact, you should insist upon it. You should insist upon it. Think about this from this perspective. Don't you want your ideal client to be excited, enthusiastic, and graciously just hand you the payment and say, yes, I want to purchase this from you? Wouldn't that be the ideal client? I think it would be for everybody. So if you got somebody who's being wishy-washy, or they won't make a decision, or you feel like you're having to drag them along, now you start moving into the territory that it's not your ideal client. I wouldn't say that it's totally not your ideal client, because I think that everybody deals with that with sales to some degree. But the idea would be, how can you help them make decisions better? Because if you can get them to make that solid decision while you're talking to them, you're going to have a much more effective client that you're actually working with. Because every client, it doesn't matter if you're a coach or not, okay? It doesn't matter what you're selling. Every client has to be coachable. Now, if they're not coachable, that's the number one thing that would make them not your client, because they will do nothing but be a pain for you to work with, right? But so the idea is, can they take direction? And that comes from you being in your authority, you being in your power, you making the suggestion and doing it, making sure you're doing it for the right reasons, not for a selfish reason that you need the sale. In other words, they actually need the value of the product or service. When you do that and you make that suggestion, right, and you say, here, listen, do this, buy now, here's what the result is going to be, you're in 100% integrity in doing that. And you're going to be very shocked at how grateful people are when you help them make that decision, because they really do want to buy from you. They just don't know how. And that might seem like a stretch, but it isn't. Most people don't know how to buy, right? They have absolutely no idea how to buy. They buy all the time. They spend all the time, but they're not doing it in their own power. They're doing it for all different kinds of reasons. That's why most people buy stuff that they don't need, and they avoid things that would actually better their life in some way, because it's like the person with the loudest voice gets the money for them, but not the person that really cares all that much about what it is that they're actually purchasing. So give this some serious thought today. Where you're lacking in the ability to make decisions, clean that up, and you'll get better with your clients too. Don't stop here. If this message moved you, hit subscribe and keep building momentum with the next video in the playlist. And if you're ready to take this further, head to our website and grab the free resources waiting for you in the link below. They'll help you start putting this into practice right now.